When my 7 siblings and I were tasked with emptying my parents' home earlier this year, the last thing to leave the house were the books. There were hundreds of them, in bookcases in every room, in boxes, in closets, tucked in a crawl space under the basement stairs. One evening, when I was there alone, I spent hours sitting on the floor in their back bedroom, surrounded by stacks and stacks and stacks of books. My job was to make sure that any book one of us had owned as children, or a book we had given to my parents as a gift, was returned to the rightful owner. The 8 piles grew and grew until they toppled, and I never even got done. It was more than tempting to open each book to look at the inscription, JoAnn, Christmas, 1964. Mom, on your 80th birthday, 2000. How old is my mother? I don't even remember. She's very old. Especially the books we had as children. But I would be sitting there still. And I was on a personal mission. I was looking for one book in particular. A book my mother had given my older sister Mary and me when we were little. This is a picture of the cover. The children are reading it at this very moment. This room is mine. You can imagine why she gave us the book. My older sister and I are best friends and thick as thieves and always have been. But there was a time in our lives, around 1966, if I'm to trust my mother, when the fact that we shared a room, a bed, a dresser, a closet, our clothes, and the very air we breathed became a little much. So my mother, the child whisperer, bought us a book that we had to share. On that early spring night, in Titonka, Iowa, sitting alone in my parents' empty room, I was looking for a message from my mother. There are lots of ways to approach this morning's gospel reading. A pastor friend of mine who is unashamedly political is probably dealing with the obvious political tension in the text at this very moment. After all, Jesus was a threat to both religious and political leaders, the Pharisees and the Herodians. And in this politically charged time in our life together, it wouldn't be hard to talk at the political dimensions of our faith in Jesus Christ. When is it not only appropriate, but perhaps necessary to oppose or support the governing authorities? Another friend, a pacifist, is at this moment probably admitting to a federal crime. For years, she has withheld that portion of her federal income tax equivalent to the tax that would go to military spending. She gives to the emperor what belongs to the emperor, except for that little 16% of her tax, which she's pretty sure goes to the Pentagon. The IRS hasn't come for her yet, but I've always promised that I'll visit her in prison. We are in the early days of a capital campaign, and a less subtle and more desperate preacher than I might use this opportunity to remind you that everything you have is a gift from God, and therefore it belongs to us. Just think how happy Jesus would be if you wrote an enormous check to the capital campaign. That's not how it works. But my head and my heart are elsewhere. My head and my heart are with little Annabelle, who has chosen to go hear my mother's story. It is our practice here to commune children when they are baptized, or any time after that they express a desire. Annabelle has expressed a desire for a very long time. We talked about this months ago, right? She's been torturing you about this. But Annabelle is also a planner. There were many pieces to the puzzle that had to come together before this day. And this is this day. I wonder what it is like for you, her mother and father, to watch this brilliant, inquisitive, deliberate daughter stand on her little black shoes, extend her little white gloved hands to receive the bread and wine, because it was not all that many years ago you held her in your hands, carrying her to a font where you admitted a truth that none of us wants to speak. Annabelle is not really yours. Owen is not really yours. Our children do not belong to us. They belong to God. Not to the emperor, not even to you. Annabelle is a gift that God gave us to enjoy. So though Jesus unashamedly poked his highly educated, wildly important political and religious opponents, inviting them to identify what belonged to the emperor and what belonged to God, it was a trick question. The challenge for us today is a little closer to our hearts. What does it mean that everything, our bodies, our intellect, our passions, the people we love, that all of that actually belongs to God? I never found the book I was looking for. I bet my sister took it. Grr. But this gospel reading put me in mind of that book and of my sister, who was a gift to me. I wanted to see that book again. I wanted to read that book again and see if what I had heard when I was Annabelle's age speaks to me still. So I went to eBay, and for $36 was able to buy a $5 book. You're welcome. Part of my desire to see it again was nostalgia. I miss my mother's voice reading to me. But part of it was a desire to share something given to me with you and with our children. This simple little story speaks a truth that Pharisees and Herodians struggle to understand. When we imagine that our stuff belongs to us, when we imagine that my room belongs to me, I am in fact dividing my heart from your heart, my life from your life, my good from what is good for you. We forget that not only our bedrooms and our clothes and our toys belong to God, but all of us and all that we have belongs to God as well. And to deny that, to hoard that, is to be poor and to be alone. Annabelle will never be alone. Her parents will love her with all their hearts until they themselves are returned to God. We will always love her. And I am confident that everywhere she goes, God will place good and kind people in her path to guide and protect and cherish her. And I know this to be true because Annabelle doesn't belong to us. This building doesn't belong to us. Our stuff doesn't belong to us. Our money doesn't belong to us. The people we love, they don't belong to us. I was exactly Annabelle's age when Mom handed "This room is mine" to my sister and me. The two sisters in the story shared a room and a closet and a dresser and a bed and the very air that they breathed. You would think that my mother had written the book. And in the end, they realized that if they were to divide all that stuff, if they were to say, "This is mine and this is mine," that they would lose each other. And my mother was saying, "Mary, JoAnn, There is nothing worth losing your sister over. I doubt that Jesus was anticipating this day when he confronted the Pharisees and Herodians, nor was he anticipating us and our love of our money, our love of our stuff, our love of our stature. But whether the stuff we hoard is status or wealth or power or a person, none of it belongs to us. Give to the emperor the things that belong to the emperor, Jesus said. That's easy. But everything else, the stuff that belongs to God, you know what to do.